Yeah, it's a comment.
Hey, welcome back to the Atheist and Christian Book Club, a monthly gathering of atheists. Welcome back to the Atheist and Christian Book Club, a monthly gathering of both atheists and Christians who respectfully discuss important books from both perspectives. I'm James Walker, co-founder of the club, president of Watchman Fellowship, a Christian apologetics ministry. Our other co-founder is Bill Cluck, former Christian, now atheist.
Oh, he was going to say representing.
Representing.
And we were just talking about morality.
Well done. Representative of both agnostic and atheist. I think you would
Well,
represent.
it's funny, Todd goes, well, they're atheists. What do you expect? I mean, isn't that a little bit marginalizing? You know?
Well, I think I can speak. I can speak for a lot of Christians who say I know atheists who are more moral than some Christians that I know. So you can be a moral person without believing in God.
Thank you for
the
that.
better question is how do you ground the morality? Where does it come from? That is a question worth asking. But whether or not you can be moral and not believe in God, I think we all agree that the answer is yes on that.
So we never get anywhere with this morality thing. So what I'd like to talk about is the book. And it's funny, when I have a question, what I asked Dan just now was the Shoemaker
Levy comment.
Believe that in 1994 it hit Jupiter, and they thought it was a smudge on their telescopes, right?
Well, the Shoemaker-Levy saw a string of lights in the telescope that looked like a long streak, and then more and more telescopes focused on this. They saw that it was fragments of something that Jupiter's gravity had broken up, and these fragments, a loosely correlated comet or an asteroid or something, was broken apart. Some of these fragments were Earth-sized. At least the impact crater, the impact marks on Jupiter's southern hemisphere were the size of Earth.
Okay.
So how big these rocks were, actually they weren't sure, but they were able to train every telescope on this impact, and it was a phenomenal event. That was.
So what you ask yourself, if that could happen to Jupiter, could it? And it has happened on Earth. You're all familiar with the KT
Not one that big.
meteorite. Well, the KT meteorite was big enough to extinguish the dinosaurs.
Yeah, but it wasn't as big as Earth.
Oh, right. No, exactly.
What we had suspected, I say we, scientists suspected, but now we had more confirmation of, was that Uranus, Neptune, and Jupiter are basically, so this is really fascinating, because I just talked to Guillermo Gonzalez, like I said earlier. Guillermo, there's been about 4,000 extrasolar planets that have been discovered in the last decade. The technology has increased. Our better technology, the more planets we're discovering. What they found, and this is directly from Guillermo, who is a planetary scientist, is that we used to think our solar system, talk about anthropocentrism, we used to think our solar system was standard. This is how things are. Rocky planets toward the sun, gas giants out on the peripheral. That's just standard solar system fare. This is exactly the opposite. Every extrasolar system that we have found, gas giants near their parent star, rocky planets like Mars, Venus, Mercury, and Earth on the exterior, on the outside. It's exactly inverse. But what Shoemaker-Levy and what Bill was talking about had established more thoroughly that we'd already suspected is that the gas giants on the outer edge of our solar system act as sentinels, and they are vacuum cleaners, and they deflect and they prevent and they shield us from these Earth-size and other world-ending asteroids and comets that come into our atmosphere. That's why Saturn has rings, probably. That's why Jupiter has 64 moons. They collect stuff and the outside of our solar system and prevent the big stuff from coming on the inside. And it's one of the reasons why I think, it's why I think the universe is designed. That's an awfully wonderful happenstance if it's not.
But
if it was huge, you'd think it'll fall into the sun and be absorbed by it.
Yeah.
It's bigger than.
But
big has to be far enough away not to get into it.
in the book it says every 20,000 years or so we're going to have a civilization ending comet.
Something like that. But
200.
Well, it said-
Civilization, not extinction level.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But we've only ever had one civilization, though, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
So we're due. We're overdue.
Some
right?
we're overdue. Yeah, some would question this one.
but you had the Permian extinction like 2 million years ago, where it knocked out like 95% of species. Then you had the 65 million years ago. You had the Yucatan
Yeah, the Permian was like 2 billion.
Yeah,
2 million.
Permian was
2 million?
way on back.
No, it was far.
Well, whatever. I mean, the whole point
That's
is
trilobites.
God gonna?
What did the trilobites do? Was there a trilobite civilization?
I mean, Dan, is God gonna go and say, look, I'm gonna give him a pass because that last one was a monster hit, that I let go, or is it just? Are we gonna be like Jupiter and God's just gonna let us get wiped out?
Well, I think
Reflection on this.
according to Revelation, the earth is going to be burned up but not completely destroyed and recreated. That is the hope. The
Sounds
new
a lot
heavens and
like
new
an
earth.
So he's not gonna give us a pass. He's gonna.
I don't know how, but it'll be fire.
He'll give us a pass.
It sounds like.
Help me out here, Ken.
So I have a question for the Christians in the group. So
Question from Ken,
it
everybody.
came to me as I was listening. I listened to the audible version of the book, and he was talking about how the need for going out and creating these external outposts, civilizations, to kind of protect us from inevitable doom that's going to come down the road at some point from an asteroid or whatever. And so my question to Christians is, do y'all think that's something that's worth investing in, given that maybe you believe that Jesus is coming back around the corner, maybe this generation or next generation?
That's a good
Is it
question.
even
Yeah.
something to
Is it a
worry
waste of
about?
money?
I would think was there more or is it?
That was kind of the gist
Okay.
of it. Yeah.
Well, I think it was Martin Luther, and you probably know this quote, but I think it may have been Augustine or one of the earlier saints that he said if he knew this was the last night on earth, he'd plant an apple tree.
Luther.
Was that Luther? Yeah, and I think I mean, you've seen it, Ken, in your missionary work, that you hear somebody calling out, hey, next Tuesday is it, and then what the frenzy that is unleashed of people doing all kinds of stuff. But I am of the mindset, maybe other people are different, I would keep doing what I'm doing as I'm doing it. I mean, and I think space exploration is, he talks about, he goes on in, I think, the last couple of chapters, he has a very difficult time trying to justify expenditures for, ultimately when you go to NASA, the government, you ask for money, it's like, why are you doing this? Why do you want to go live on an asteroid? Why do you want to go to Mars? Why do you want to go to the moon, right? It was easy to go to the moon because the Russians, right? We had an arch enemy, we have to beat them.
For all mankind.
We have to smite them for Sputnik, right? They got 1957, they got Sputnik up in the air, they beat us. So we got to beat them bad. We got to send 12 men to the moon. And,
Right.
but now we're piggybacking on Russian equipment, But I'd say I think it's wonderful. I think for me as a Christian, it of course it shows the glory of God. That's not why NASA's going to go out and explore everything. No. But as long as they keep doing that, I'm like, cool. Look at that.
But to clarify, so you are on board with Sagan's rationale for wanting to go out into the outer reaches of the solar system and plant ourselves in these outer outlying worlds, he calls them, for the sole purpose, not sole purposes, but principally for the purpose of protecting ourselves against devastation.
Oh well, now I don't think we're going to protect ourselves by living on an asteroid. I don't think we're going to protect ourselves from living on Mars. And so no, I wouldn't agree with nuclear arms in space or trying to redirect asteroids. But exploration, mining, perhaps new technologies and things like that.
So you're in favor of exploration, but not the rationale that he gives, which is to protect ourselves.
Yeah, because that gets into the issue of trying to control.
Yeah, if I could answer that,
It's discovery.
I'm not represent Christianity or
I know
anything,
you-
but
Well, you
on
kind
the
of-
one hand, that I really like about and still like about Carl Sagan is his ability to inspire. And like I said, you finished the book, and I'm thinking, whatever we're spending on NASA, multiply by 10. Because but that subtitle of his book about and the final chapter about being able to preserve our species by basically not having all our eggs in one basket. If we have people living out here, humans living out here.
That's what I meant.
I understand the theory. I'm not opposed to it as a theory. I'm not opposed at all to it as a theory. But it was one of the most disappointing parts of the book to me. Because while he starts off in the early chapters talking about and inhabit other planets on other stars, not yet. Well, that's okay. That sounds like we're almost there. But then as you read the book, you find out, well, initially we thought that maybe Jupiter or Mars would be, life support. Maybe life's already there. You have the right, a yellow dwarf, the right star, it's about the right distance, it's a rocky planet, it has an atmosphere, all these things going for it. And then you get there and find out that you're going to melt lead on the surface of it, so it's just like, he gives no hope for anything in this solar system except maybe one of the moons of Saturn. Okay, so, and then he talks about the great distance and all. It's how many of you thought like we're not yet was where we are on being able to get outside of our solar system to the nearest star and seeing if we can find an inhabitable planet there? I was left very depressed, like that's not going to happen.
Timothy, what do you think?
I'm right with them.
All right, agreement.
The distances are too great.
Yeah.
We are so close to AI singularity. I think that's the basket I'm putting my eggs in. It'll figure things out, and if it can't figure out a way for us squishy meat bags to get out and colonize, it'll find a way for it, because AI is immune to gamma solar radiation. It can travel huge distances, and it doesn't have to breathe. It doesn't have to breathe oxygen. And if they're self-replicating, you could have the entire this galaxy and then beyond populated. It wouldn't be human, but it would be something.
Would you define that as a Darwinian extension of humans? Is this how we evolve?
There's no genetic material in AI.
But
But
that
it's a
sounds
different
like
form.
Maybe
There's
Yeah, but
Yeah.
does that even matter? It's the thoughts. It's the culture. It's
been RNA, self-replicating RNA, and then DNA. It's been DNA this whole time, so you got to think outside the box at that point.
So does AI become the new DNA?
Looks like, because it's going to happen in our lifetime. Get ready.
I see that negativity about space travel as being a lack of faith in human nature, is what I see. I mean, we are inquisitive. The human race was born to discover. Heck, Columbus jumped on a ratty old ship and discovered the United States. We wouldn't be here. But the thing is, it's the old adage. When they discovered atomic energy, it was supposed to be a wonderful thing for humanity, and it killed millions. So that is what I see about the negativity
But
Sagan had.
there's a reason for that. The nearest star is 4 light years, and that doesn't sound like much, but the sun is 8 light minutes, which is 93 million miles. So if you had a light day, it would be billions of miles. That's just a day. The nearest star is right opposite Centauri 4. So is there any possible way going, and that's going at the speed of light.
And I understand that, but there's many people that believe that we are not the only species,
Right, but it's
which
just-
means that we likely are not the most progressed species. So there are civilizations that can travel billions of miles per hour.
Maybe
and
it is.
be in another space
You
at
can't
one time.
travel faster than light.
What's the
evidence
so,
for that?
so
Well, wait a minute. Let's ask somebody that knows. Okay, Daniel, what's the
What's the evidence?
is it feasible to go to the nearest star and go and have another civilization?
Okay, so one of the things I learned from talking to Guillermo is that, we have telescopes trained on extrasolar planets. So things that we have observational astronomy has seen, not theoretical, not philosophical, not Matt Damon and the Martian, planets that we have seen with telescopes that are around stars where we're looking for habitable zones. And so the observational astronomers are not finding anything, but you hear Earth-like a lot.
Yeah.
And this is kind of almost, in a sense, Bob, almost, and if you talk to people in the trenches who do observational astronomy, it's kind of propagandistic clickbait to say something is Earth-like, because as Guillermo says, he says, to me, Earth-like is where I can raise rabbits and tomatoes. Not something that has a little blue circle around it that I can see from 110 light years away. But here's the problem. That the distance is nearly insurmountable. There's absolutely,
based on what we know.
based on what we know,
We have
would
not
to-
developed warp propulsion yet.
the other thing, Bob, is that these distances limit our ability to see, to be able. So for example, if we're looking at our solar system
Right.
from another solar system doing exoplanet research, let's just say that existed, they might see Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. They might see that as we see planets in their system, and we're all kind of cozied into this little habitable zone according to their science. But look at the absolute radical difference between Venus and Earth. I mean, Venus has an atmosphere that's 900, or I don't know, it's 100 times, 90 times more dense than Earth. It crushed the Russian lander when it landed there. The surface temperature is unbearably almost molten, and it's our twin, and it has an atmosphere. And we can't tell from these distances what are on these worlds. But
Another factor too is because of the distance of the speed of light. If we did have the technology to spot a perfect planet that we did know supported life, if we had it here on Earth, by the time we got there, it wouldn't be there anymore.
well,
But
exactly.
we're missing out on something here. We don't have the technology, I understand, to travel at those speeds. But we keep saying, well, they've got, they don't see any evidence of it. But each time we've come out with a new aircraft of some kind, maybe they go a little faster, maybe they carry a little bit more electronics, but the technology they've worked towards is stealth.
Bob, let me
But
get
you have-
ahead
they can go
of us for
places
just a
without
minute.
being
'Cause
You'd have to be.
This is something that I'm debating, and we've talked a little bit about a book for January or February. Maybe not doing a book, but doing a documentary. Have any of you seen Transcendent Man?
No.
Transcendence with Johnny Depp.
No. Transcendent.
That was a good movie.
Oh, you like Johnny Depp?
This is a
that was an awesome
movie.
movie.
A
The girls want
documentary.
Johnny Depp. Sorry.
It's basically it's the guy who invented synthetic speech for computers and the digital keyboards. I can't remember what his name is right now.
Kurzweil. Ray Kurzweil.
Ray Kurzweil.
The vitamin man.
Basically, there's two factors going on in the documentary. One of them is with the tech. The key, and I think what you're talking about is that we can't have incremental growth in our technology. It has to be. It has to have a tipping point of being exponential. And so what he says is, if you look over the last 200 years, human life has increased tremendously. The average age of an adult male, 42, 38 years old, and now it's 85 years old if you live in the western part of the world. But most of that growth's happened just in the last 75 years. And so one of his theories is there's going to come a time as the technology progresses in medicine and the breakthroughs we're having in DNA and all the other kinds of new technology, that one day is going to come when the average lifespan for a human is going to go in 1 year to 366 days more than it was. And that's what he calls Methuselah
So outstrip.
principle.
Yeah.
Passing.
And so you basically have at least theoretical immortality at that point. Now, the other thing he talks about is being able, as a backup plan, because he says doesn't think he's going to live long enough, but it's possible because the way that the technology is, you're doubling every couple of years now. And so he says that and this goes back to the AI factor, you can digitize yourself. Every thought could become ones and zeros. You can map your DNA. You can basically back yourself up and restore yourself later. If you've ever done that and survived a computer crash, you know how valuable that can be. So it's not a book; it's a documentary. I watched it about 5 years ago, and it still comes to mind from time to time. But it would talk about some of these things. He has a very optimistic view of technology, and he believes that there's reason. He has reasons why he thinks it will be used for good and not evil. And what we'd have to be able to transcend, so to speak, and be able to have life anywhere else on any other planet or any other asteroid or any other, especially another star, we would have to have a type of technology that's exponential, that basically not incremental, like we have a car that goes a little bit faster than the one last year. It needs to be doubling every 18 months or so.
There's an excellent book, so I'll just 10 seconds. There's an excellent book that was written by a British philosopher named Mary Midgley called Science as Salvation. And she was one that challenged Richard Dawkins early on when he came out with God Delusion, just on the philosophy aspect of it. But she says something very poignant in that book, and I think it's very true, that there's no machine that science is incapable of saving us because science is a human endeavor, and when human beings make machines or technology, they embed their own fallibility and error into the technology they're making, so the technology can never sort of transcend and do the transcendent things that we want it to do.
Self-driving
And
cars,
and
you have to make a
seeing as-
decision. Do you save yourself or do you save the
Right, exactly.
And seeing as you're looking at me, I'm going to do a 10-second comeback.
I was just-
And it sounds very juvenile, but I can almost see this picture of other civilizations watching us and going, I can't believe they're still doing that shit. You know, we're so far behind the technology curve, and they just we look at some people and go, well, that's really juvenile. Why are you doing that? That's
think,
so old.
I
I think we're way behind the technology
minus the
as a species.
the swear word. I think that's what God says all the time.
Jim, you had something to add to that?
But he knows
Shut up.
he knows the answer to the question though.
Based on our current technology, it would take, Dan, help me out here, like tens of thousands of years to get to the nearest, what we hope would
Light
be.
years, Jim. Light years.
No, he's saying,
No.
some.
Oh, it's
yeah, yeah, yeah,
okay, yeah.
Listen, based on, yeah, it would take a long time. Well, we forget the fact that if it took that long to get there, that means that all those tens of thousands of years, they're reproducing on this ship. They've got an enclosed ecosystem, right? It's an so if you got an enclosed ecosystem, you're self-sustaining, you're reproducing, you're doing everything. Why do you need our planet to? Why not just colonizing the ships themselves?
That comes back to Ken's question. And
Yep.
that is, and my question is, human nature having been proven for thousands of years at least to be faulty, why would it be different on a colony on another planet?
Well, that seems to
And
be
Jim's-
but that's a good
It just
question.
doubles your chances of survival.
Jim's question, it shows how this can never work. How many of you have ever been on a trip to Disneyland with your family or something? A long trip like that? You
That's
know
all
that's not
saying
gonna
it's a
work.
small, small world.
Well, no, they on the spaceships they were at each other's throats. Have you guys heard this?
Sagan wasn't talking about a spaceship. He was talking about an
Colonies.
asteroid,
Yeah.
pushing the asteroid
Yeah.
and letting it, people just live there.
Yeah.
For thousands
I
of
did,
years,
I did-
generations.
I watched.
Sasha's going to be asked the same question, so we
Yeah.
can see in a minute how she responds.
But have any of you seen The Martian with Matt Damon?
Yeah.
Okay, so I watched that with a friend of mine last night as I was reading this and preparing, and I kept thinking to myself, I like that movie. It's a really good movie. What I kept thinking was this very idea that I was reading in Pale Blue Dot. Everything on that planet had to be transported. Everything at an amazing amount. I mean, Sagan in here breaks down the cost of how much it costs to move a kilogram of stuff out there. I don't forgot what the cost was, but it was like that's why we're not out there.
More than the price of gold.
Because it's more than the price of gold, Ken. Right. And so I'm thinking to myself of that quote as I'm watching The Martian, going, I want to see the movie that explains how you got all that stuff there.
How about this?
And then we'll go into the whole survival.
Another whole factor about this. How many of you followed the story on the dome? What is it called? The biosphere. There were two of them, and I don't remember the details. It was a long time since I looked at it, but you can go to Wikipedia. It was a joke. They didn't work from day one, and you have all the material on Earth. You don't have to launch it. You just have to take it and
Go to Home
build
Depot or Lowe's
it
or
and seal
Walmart.
it. They cheated. They broke it out. They had stuff smuggled into them. It's just like, and so you're going to do this on an asteroid?
No, you can't. And they'd all get along. They'd
kill each other.
There'd never be any scenes of sex power or
You know,
We're gonna have
we
to
should
resolve
bring
the problem of
primates to the
sin before we
asteroid.
get
Just
any
let
of these
them
other issues.
do
Well,
their
I think
thing.
you would have to go to cryogenics, right? You'd have to just freeze
There you go.
yourself.
Cryogenics. I like that.
And have
Oh, God
a
forbid.
timer that sleeps you up.
There are cryogenic labs where people really, I think there's a lot of wealthy people that
One more thing, since we're talking about Voyager. How many remember V'ger?
Star Trek.
V'ger?
Star Trek.
You see how bad these things can go? That was the original Star Trek movie, wasn't it? V'ger?
Yeah, it's the Star Trek.
I think humans are going to have
itself.
human problems wherever we live.
And by the way, most of you are Sagan fans, you know this, but just fun fact: Sasha's half brother Nick from Carl's first marriage, his voice is on the golden record. He's the child that says hello from Earth.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So it was fun to have her tell me that.
That's a good bar bet.
That was cool. That was cool.
So
Yeah.
since Dan brought up a movie, I think I'd like to recommend a show called The Expanse. It's on Amazon
Okay.
Prime Video. but it's like 200 years in the future, and they're colonizing the asteroid belts and Mars, and they've got all these different colonies. It reminded me a lot of when I was listening to the Pale Blue Dot on Audible.
Yeah.
The civilization that Sagan was envisioning, they must have ripped it off
And just
Sagan all
done it
over.
and put it in
It's
there?
completely a mirror image of what
It's on Prime, Amazon Prime?
Is it a
Yeah.
single movie?
We're gonna have to pick up the pace because we have two more short interviews to listen to, so let's do this right now. This is,
Yeah, The Expanse.
Sasha, and again, her book, and we might want to do this book next year too. It's called For Small Creatures Such as We, which is one of her father's lines, which really goes back to Pale Blue Dot.
This is from Contact, the movie
you know,
Contact.
insignificant, and that would be another great book to do, perhaps. But anyway, what we want to do on this one, I'm going to ask her about does the cosmos and this idea of interplanetary or be it colonizing the cosmos, does this give us a hope for some kind of tacit immortality? Maybe not for individuals, but for the species at least.
And just to set this up a little bit, Sasha and I talked a little bit at the front end about her and her father's idea of immortality. So this clip kind of comes on the tail of that.
The book was written, her book was written after an article that was in the New York Magazine, which got widespread appeal and was picked up and republished in a lot of different venues. But in that, she talked about when she first found out that we were going to die and the conversation she had with her father about could we live again and how he answered that. And I don't want to put words in her mouth or anything, but when you read the article, it's kind of like she never got over that. Not really. And so she's still wrestling with how you deal with that. So that's why I asked this question. So let's watch that now. Sasha, thanks so much for taking a few moments of your time to talk with us at the Atheist and Christian Book Club as we discuss your father's book, Pale Blue Dot. And on page 332 of his book, your dad quotes Charles Lindholm, who's a professor of anthropology at Boston University, and he quotes the professor saying, "In modern Western society, the erosion of tradition and the collapse of accepted religious beliefs leaves us without a telos, or an end to which we strive, a sanctified notion of humanity's potential. Bereft of a sacred project, we have only a demystifying image of a frail and fallible humanity, no longer capable of becoming God-like creatures." Then your father makes an interesting comment about Professor Lindholm's quote, as narrated by your mother.
"I believe it is healthy, indeed essential, to keep our frailty and fallibility firmly in mind. I worry about people who aspire to be godlike. But as for a long-term goal and a sacred project, there is one before us. On it, the very survival of our species depends. If we have been locked and bolted into a prison of the self, here is an escape hatch, something worthy, something vastly larger than ourselves, a crucial act on behalf of humanity. Peopling other worlds unifies nations and ethnic groups, binds the generations, and requires us to be both smart and wise. It liberates our nature and in part returns us to our beginnings. Even now, this new telos is within our grasp."
My question is this, Sasha. Do you think that your father's this vision of peopling other worlds and his call for a human future in space, maybe in some ways may have been an attempt to create a transcendent purpose, a hope for some type of immortality, if not for him personally, for humankind as a whole?
It's a matter of survival a little bit longer, not forever, because even if we don't destroy ourselves and we manage to move, to another planet that's habitable and lovely. And we are not here when in 5 billion years the sun implodes and makes it very, impossible to stay. It won't be immortality because our species will evolve and we will change into something else.
Hey, Sasha, thanks so much for taking.
Oh, wait.
That's okay, go ahead.
No, that's fine. I'll go back a little so you can edit.
We will.
I used to be a TV producer, so I know.
Sorry.
So even if we make it possible for us to leave this world and move to another planet that's habitable and lovely, and we are not here on this planet in the solar system when the sun in 5 billion years ish implodes and makes it not very nice to stay. Wherever we are, we will evolve eventually into something else, and we will become a species that no longer reveres what we revere. Our values will change, our ideas will change, and we will not be recognizable. I mean, not we, they will not recognize us as their brethren. I mean, will they carry maybe some of the genetic material? Sure, but to me, I mean, is it immortality if we would not recognize them as part of us? I don't think so. But I also think that survival, that is the driving force of so much of what we do as a species, and it's central to our behavior and to what we value. And I think a lot of what I write about is the idea that even if it's all chance and chaos and nothing happens for a reason, the fact that any of us are alive right now is worthy of celebration and wonderful. And so, yeah, I think being alive is great, and I think it would be wonderful if we could, make it possible to survive a little longer. But I think that's different than immortality.
Provocative movie is Contact, if you haven't seen it.
Oh, just
I
fun
only
fact
saw
on
the movie. I heard the book is a lot better.
Fun fact on Contact. It took 17 years to make.
But the book is awesome.
And the movie was begun, and then Carl and his wife Ann decided to write the book. So it wasn't like the book existed then the movie. It was always supposed to be a movie. And then Carl and Ann and Sasha told me that Carl and Ann worked together on writing the book. And for small creatures such as we, the vastness is only bearable through love was Ann Druyan's line in Contact, that she wrote it in Contact. But it took 17 years to make the movie. And it came out in the summer of 1997. And Carl had died in December of 1996, so he didn't even get to see it.
You never saw it.
I remember there was the remembrance to him at the end in the credits. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That was powerful on so many different levels. It has its layers to it. You go back and watch it a second time, and you're picking up all this stuff you didn't catch the first time.
And in the beginning, if you have the book is dedicated to Alexandra.
That's Sasha. That's her.
Oh,
really?
Well.
So,
So you're saying that the book is way better even than
Yes.
the movie?
Yes.
I've not read the book, but
I
that's
fell
you
in
read
love
it?
with the,
And the book superseded the
Do you
movie.
think
the book came after the movie,
Oh, yeah.
while the movie was being
Okay.
produced, because the movie took 17 years.
Ken has a theme song.
Well, I have the lyrics to a Keith Green song that ties into the interview that was just.
Oh, you're Christian.
Yeah, I don't know if it's appropriate for a non-believer.
Oh, that's okay.
We cite
I
atheists all
tend
the
to
time.
agree with it. I mean, even though it's.
Well, that's
So,
wonderful.
well, you can run to the end of the highway and not find what you're looking for. Moving won't make your troubles disappear, and you can search to the end of the highway and come back no better than before. to find yourself, you got to start right here. You say you want to hit the road because life is so deceiving. Do you think it's different at the other end? So you can run to the end of the highway and not find what you're looking for. Moving won't make your troubles disappear. And it goes on and on. You say you want to find a place where people are not lying. If you find a place like that, I'll go there too. So we can run to the end of the universe and we'll still be us.
I met
where people are not.
I met
What's that word? Lying.
Oh, lying.
I met Apollo
Amen.
16 astronaut Charlie Duke, who was the voice of Apollo 11's Houston.
Yeah.
And he gave a testimony at a men's Bible study a couple of years ago. That's where I met him. And he was talking about everybody, he became a Christian shortly after he was a lukewarm Christian, went to the moon and came back, and he was he had a salvation experience he testifies to. But it's interesting, when he talked about being on the moon, he's like, it's the moon. I mean, to Ken's point and to Keith's Green point, it's like, there wasn't, it was beautiful, it was different, but it was like, it's the moon. It wasn't like, oh, it was so wonderful and I had this existential out-of-body experience because I was hopping on the moon in 1/6 gravity, and it was like, it's the moon, but it's to the point that we get to these other worlds. I think in here, Carl Sagan talked about how the moon is boring. That after Apollo 17 we were bored with the moon. Well, you make that Mars, make that wherever, Alpha Centauri or the next galaxy. We're going to be bored with Pluto. We're already sort of bored with Pluto, right? In a sense, that to Ken's point, that no change of place. And he starts the book off by saying we've been demoted from the center of the universe, right? That the cosmographic location of Earth has moved, and now we're less significant. But if we move, we're not going to be any more significant. And I talked about the significance question.
I had a question I recorded on that very point. Are you going to play that? If not, can I just mention it?
Sure, I might have touched on it.
Yeah, because it struck me that Carl Sagan and the anti-Copernicans of the Catholic Church are buying into the same assumption. And it just struck me reading this. It says, and he goes into really good detail about how, people thought the Earth was the center of the center of everything. And then Copernicus came along and said, hey, the Earth goes around the sun, so the sun is the center of everything. That was the fallback position. Then we figured, well, the sun's not the center either, and then we're not the center of anything. But the reason that the church and everybody fought so hard against that was because of the, why is they fight so hard against it? Because their assumption is that our physical position in the universe determines our significance. Okay, that's the kind of the underlying assumption. That's why they fought so hard against it.
Right.
So why, I think Sagan and all the anti-centrists of everything are buying into the same assumption that our significance in the universe depends on our physical location. And if we're not the center of the universe, then we're not significant. That's where they're taking it.
And that's exactly right, Mike. And I do ask her that question in another kind of roundabout way. I asked her, how did her dad determine our significance? Because
see, I think the assumption is just wrong.
It is. It's the Copernican principle. It says that and really the medievals, if you go back to when this was really embraced, it was like the position of Earth under the moon, it was like a dump. It wasn't like, the throne of all, God loves us because we're a mess in some sense. It wasn't a wonderful harmonious sort of picture that but you're right to the point. It's a fallacy to think that, well, if I live in the geographic center of North America, am I significant if I insignificant, less significant if I am off center a little bit?
Kind of like both groups argue it wrong. Okay, so some of the Christians were saying we've got to be at the center of the universe because that's what makes us important. Well, that was wrong. It doesn't matter where you are. That's not what creates importance. But then it's like the others will argue, we found out we're not the center of the universe, so we're just a pale blue dot and are insignificant. Yeah. Well, you're arguing both sides of the wrong argument.
Yeah, and see, I think this is the thing that people go to immense trouble to say we're not the center. They spend pages and chapters about that.
It's a fallacy.
Yeah. So I think that's what it's thinking.
I think the underlying assumption that we are significant is questionable.
I think that's
you look
the
at the
point.
size of the cosmos.
Yeah.
But that's our question. We're asking, does size matter? That's the question.
Well,
I think you're right in a sense, Mike. I think, but my worry is that you're finding a way to salvage the importance or the significance of humanity. You still want to hold on to that.
Well, I'm
right?
saying we look for significance in a different place than our physical position.
I know that, but I worry that by doing that, by making that argument, you're still not grappling with other aspects, points that he made, that the whole young Earth creationist thing is an attempt to make us temporally in the center of the universe. In other words, we're not just the tail end of billions and billions of years. We're kind of central to the story of history, and also animal life. We tend to think of ourselves as wholly separate from the animal world. There's this tendency, a religious tendency, to invest ourselves with more significance than we really are owed to ourselves. And I think by focusing on the erroneous logic of Sagan and others, I think you're failing to really come to terms with the fact that we are insignificant. Until we realize.
Speak for yourself. Sorry. No, I mean the thing is, where does our significance lie? And I think from the Christian point of view, and James keeps saying this, we're made in the image of God, and anything else is open for interpretation.
And I asked,
from a non-Christian point of view, we can be totally insignificant. But
That's going to be the last question of Sasha too, about where do we derive significance from.
Okay.
But I think both her book, I shouldn't say her book, I haven't read it, but certainly the article that she wrote for New York Magazine, and really part of the premise of Pale Blue Dot was about significance and that whole picture. I mean, that's what makes it so haunting. When Voyager flips around and takes it, and that's that little speck right there. That's everything. Everybody. How does he say it? Everyone who ever lives, everyone you've ever known, all of it's.
James, I just demand to be insignificant. Okay? Can you give me that?
I can make the case for you already.
We'll make an exception.
I think I shouldn't say that about my esteemed co-founder.
but it's interesting though, because in the first part of the book, he's talking about, this is a quote from page 9 in mine, our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe, are challenged by this pale point of light. Now, it's still very anthropocentric, because you have a small man on a small pale blue dot pronouncing what we are and where we are in the universe.
Yeah, who is he?
I mean, it's very significant. It's very significant. The statement that I am insignificant is profoundly significant.
Very cool. And I should believe you why.
And why should I believe somebody on a dot?
Insignificant, right?
Yeah.
Which begs the bigger question: why do we trust anything we think?
Right. So here we have the idea that anyways, and then it's interesting though, at the last part of that paragraph on page 9, he says, in all of our obscurity, in this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. And then he just save us. Why do we need to be saved from ourselves? And from his perspective, what's wrong with us?
Well, we don't need to be saved.
If we're insignificant, why do we need salvation?
It's okay. Chris has an insight on that.
Well, that's okay. He answers that question at the end of the book, right, where he talks about all the ways that we have now developed the technology to exterminate ourselves in a variety of ways.
The Chinese have
And the solution to that he puts forth, is that we cannot. His idea is that we have no sign in his mind. Obviously, people in this room disagree, but there's not going to be a God coming down to clear the atmosphere, knock away the asteroids.
Unless it's alien.
Now, if we
seriously, I left thinking the only real hope, because even Sasha talks about whatever survives is not going to even be human. So the only hope we would have is that if you take there's no God and the vastness of the universe, that some other civilization out there on some other star has advanced to such a place, because they're eons ahead of us, that they can actually have got the technology developed to come out and rescue us, and basically the alien becomes our savior.
But then why would they? We're insignificant.
You forgot AI.
Oh, those guys are
forgot AI.
Well, and that's not
And
something
it's right here.
Go to the
And
next.
it's going to happen in our lifetime.
I find
Is it going to save us or destroy us?
What do you mean save? Define
Exactly, and that's the point. If we
Save us from extinction? Yes.
Okay, so here's the thing about nuclear war or a telescope or a nuclear war or something. Let's say we annihilate, most of the population. Is that, in a naturalistic perspective, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
We're going to have to get to this last interview because we have some other housekeeping things.
That's a moral
last question.
Ken, do we need to get your comment?
Well, I just find it profoundly ironic that, I was growing up, I read books against humanism, and that one of the prevailing themes was that humanists are wanting to be the captains of their own ship, make their own significance, and elevating humankind or mankind to the pinnacle of the universe, and basically abrogating their position in defiance of God. So that the accusation was that we're elevating ourselves too much, and yet it's people like Sagan who are demoting our significance. I'm demoting our significance. I'm realizing the truth that we are not significant cosmically. Whereas it's the religious people that are wanting to say, oh, well, we are the apple of God's eye. That's kind of an inversion of the whole accusation that humanists are the ones that are the ones abrogating their...
Well, what's the appropriate place of man? That's the question we're all asking.
Well, I think a sober correspondence to reality is what we want to strive for.
And so the point is from looking at our dot, who on the dot defines what's sober reality about everything? That's the question.
Oh, well, that's easy if you're on YouTube. You'll live forever, Jim.
Let's do this. This is, I think, a great wrap-up interview. And by the way, all of this was edited and done. I mean, we came in, Brady and I came in, and George, I think you helped on that too, on shooting the interview. Were you here for that?
With Sasha? No.
Yeah, you weren't here for that part, I'm sorry. So anyway, but he's the one who lined up the interview as part of a longer 1-hour podcast. It's also on video. I'm going to give you the link to that when this is over. We're only seeing a small portion that was designed just for the book club questions. So I'll give you that link in a minute, but it's a great wrap-up for our club tonight because Sasha's going to address some of these last questions. What did her dad think about Jesus, and where do we derive our significance, the very thing we're talking about? So let's go ahead and watch that now.
That there's any, I guess scientifically and philosophically, those are one thing to me, I think, and to my dad. His philosophy was science. And sure, cultural traditions that were Jewish and things that you do to say it's springtime, like Passover, opposed to doing, that's one thing. But in terms of actual worldview and philosophy, science was the root of that. And we're significant to ourselves as a species, and but I think that's a different question. If we feel like, our love for one another is really meaningful and important, I think that's beautiful and that's great, but I don't think that means it's universal. It just means that this is what we do on this little planet at this little moment, and maybe that's totally great and wonderful and that's enough for us. But I mean, for me, I think it is. I don't think it has to be, universal. I don't think that it has to. It's just this is how this is how we've evolved, and it's a great evolutionary advantage to get along with the other members of your species. And we are, sometimes we're terrible at it, and sometimes we're really good at it. And that's how we raise our young, and we live in communities, and that's how we get along, and that's how we make more of ourselves. And I don't think that means that it's the singular way to be in the universe. We just don't have any other evidence about how to be on other planets, or out in the multiverse. But I think that we're always going to look at everything through our very narrow lens of being our particular creatures in our particular place, and that's okay. But I think, like anything, we should be self-aware. It's like if you live in a country and you've only ever been in that country and you only speak that language, and the way you see the world is filtered through that lens, that's okay. But just we have to be aware that it's not the same for all the other points of view. a really interesting question. I would have to really delve into some of the historical data, but in terms of somebody, an iconic person who, was like really, I think by modern standards would be considered a really enlightened hippie. And I really admire that, and somebody who really, I think that's a really wonderful thing, and somebody who really was interested in treating people equally, and who, didn't see a lot of the distinctions between groups that are so central to the way we organize ourselves today, sadly.
But your dad, from the Contact quote, your dad was not a mythicist. He did believe in the existence of Jesus of Nazareth as a person, anyway. Correct?
I think so. I don't know. I'm gonna have to ask my mom. I don't know. I think so. We have to. Yeah. Well, I'll have to get back to.
Yeah, I'm careful. I wrote a small paper on him about his religious beliefs. I wanted to have a nice, a good, concise background of that, and I didn't want to pull from the fiction and think that was his statement, but it seemed to be. I wish I had the quote with me. But anyway, yeah, you'll have to let me know what your mom thinks about that.
Yeah.
And
I'll find out.
Yeah, all right, that'd be great. One more secret squirrel question. Do you know when Cosmos is coming out?
I do know, but I'm not saying.
You're not supposed to tell. Well, I figured that. I thought I would ask and just throw it out there. Came out March 9th.
Oh. So what is this?
Sasha, it's been wonderful. Thank you for sending me a copy of the book. I sent you a copy of our Cosmos book to New York. I don't know if you got it or not.
So yes, I got it. I haven't. I just got home the other day.
Okay. All right. Just tweet me if you have a question or you think it's crazy. Just let me know.
I will. Thank you so much.
All right, Sasha.
Nice to meet you.
Okay. Take care. Thank you.
Way cool.
Well done.
Yeah. Good job.
Good to hear over here. That's pretty good second.
Today's would be his 85th birthday.
Wonder and awe of the cosmos.
Now, for those who want to hear the whole podcast, his podcast title is Good Heavens. Did I get it right? Okay, Good Heavens with Daniel Ray. And who's the co-host?
Wayne Spencer. You can find it on patreon.com/goodheavens. That's just the audio version if you want an audio version. And I'm on YouTube as well. The video interview, what we saw tonight, is on YouTube, full hour on YouTube. You have a link on there, right?
Well, here's the link. If you'll go to watchman.org/cosmos, it will jump you straight to the video and watch the whole hour. And there was a lot of gold in there, but it didn't relate to the book club, so it's something that you might want to see. So
she was awesome to talk to. It's funny, I forgot who I was talking to half the time. She does not wear her name like a princess. She's just so down to earth. I'll talk to anybody. We met on Twitter, and it's funny how we met, because a friend of mine who follows me said, you guys should talk to each other. I'm like, she's not going to talk to me. And then I get a tweet from her saying, yeah, I'll talk to you. What do you want to do? I'm like, really?
We've been fortunate in our book club that
we've had Frank Turek, Richard Carrier.
Right here.
There's no one we can't reach out to and not probably snag.
Trying to get Nelly T now.
All they can do is say no.
But that's more. He was too busy. He at least replied.
Right amount of money.
He was too busy, but he did reply to us.
Yeah, he did reply.
Sam Harris maybe a little out of range. Maybe Bill Craig. Maybe who knows?
No, Bill Craig would do it definitely. I know it. I've got a cell phone
Sean
number.
Carroll would be out of our range.
And that number is.
I don't know him.
You think so?
I know who he is.
Oh, I know somebody that knows him that might knock on his door.
You never know.
Sean Carroll would be the bomb.
Yeah.
All you do is ask. All they can do is
Now
say no.
Sean Carroll was debated Bill Craig and we distribute that actual video of that. So it was the Greer Hurd Forum at the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. The guy who heads that up is a member of our board of directors at Watchman, Bob Stewart. He's a philosophy professor at the university. And what they do, they finally ended their 10-year run, but they had funding to go 10 years, and they tried to have on topics, kind of reminds me of the book a little bit. They tried to get point-counterpoint discussion with the top in that field of whatever it is they're talking about. They had Bart Ehrman discuss it with, who's the guy from Dallas Seminary?
Dan Wallace.
Dan Wallace. So they had Sean Carroll, point-counterpoint with Bill Craig on cosmology. And we have actually, on our website, we have that whole series. If you're interested, you can get the audio or video.
A lot of content like that with Justin Brierley.
Yes.
Who we've had on the show.
And Justin joined us from London by Skype and came in and addressed the book club as well.
That's how I found out about this book club.
That was the amazing thing, and that shows you the power of the internet, that we had 4 new members the very next month who heard about it, not from North Texas, they heard about it from London.
It's crazy.
Yes.
Very welcome. You guys familiar with Dr. James Tour? He's a synthetic organic chemist based out of Rice University in Houston.
Well, who isn't? Of course.
I don't really.
I know who he is. Yeah, I've seen him.
He's got some pretty powerful YouTube.
Yeah.
Yes. He's
he doesn't have a book yet, thoh.
He only writes articles. He doesn't. He only did one book, and it was
smart guy.
But he's recognized outside of the Christian world. He's recognized as one of the 50 most important scientists in the world across disciplines.
Yeah.
He's doing nanotechnology stuff that is absolutely science fiction. He and other scientists race molecular-sized cars against each other.
Okay, question just on our future. Everybody knows what we're doing in December, right? We're going to do the secret book. Are you guys kind of in favor of taking a break from doing a book and doing an hour-long documentary and watching that and discussing that? Does that Ray? What's his name? Kurzweil. Transcendent Man. Does that sound like a possibility for?
Give it a try and evaluate it. That's how we'll know.
What's it about again?
It's about
singularity,
transhumanism,
merging with AI.
Yeah, and the exponential growth of technology and why that does. He's very optimistic about a type of virtual immortality being
known as
possible.
a little bit of a fringe figure.
He's definitely fringe.
Yeah,
but
he's interesting.
Yeah, you won't be bored watching it. I guarantee you that.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Would anything in transhumanism not be kind of fringy?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's our future. Strap in.
No
That's where we're going to be.
Getting back to
Let's see how it comes.
His book, The Big Picture, covers every single topic we have ever covered in this discussion. He talks about the fine-tuning arguments, origin of life, morality, you name it. Not so much about Jesus, but everything
That's
else.
his book, The Big Picture.
The Big Picture.
Should we read it?
Yeah.
The one on the
It's a bit long.
It's good. It's readable though.
Chapters that would highlight.
Is there a chance of doing parts of books and doing the next part another time?
We were going to do it at Ken's, but
Yeah, because I mean, so much of the book says, okay, we can do 1 chapter, 2, but there's no way we can cover the whole book.
Well, I kind of thought about maybe doing.
There are members of our book club.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily one of them, but there are members of our book club that do read the whole book and they're ready to talk about the whole book every month. But I'm just trying to say there are other members of our book club that they're interested in the topics, but they're not readers, and so this is why I try to give you a video alternative. If you can't read the book, watch this video. If or if you want to read the whole thing, I encourage that. But here's the 4 most important chapters. I just try to give some options like that.
It's valuable.
It's good. Yeah, it is, because I did read this whole book.
Whoa,
and I'm not even going to tell you how that is like maybe the first or second time I've gone through the whole book. But it's not that I'm not interested, it's that it's a time thing.
It is.
I always listen to Audible if that's
I start daydreaming. I have to.
Audible works for me for some topics, but not for others.
For my commute, I mean, I just...
Yeah.
There it is.
If you're doing windshield time, Audible is great.
When we showed dogs.
This is my well-worn copy. I read it.
We did a lot of Audible books. But short term.
It's bigger than the paperback you guys have.
Yeah,
But for those of us who don't have a life, man, I really highly recommend the reading.
But yeah, the interview with her was delightful. She was wonderful.
I think I echo everyone here in thanking you for putting that together.
Oh, it was
Yes,
fun.
indeed.
Very well
It was
done.
awesome.
Very well done.
Who can I get next? Just ask me and I'll try to get somebody else.
Anthony Magnabosco.
that's who we were going to do, but we changed it.
Really? Does he have a book?
Yeah. Well, no, but he does.
Peter Boghossian's
Boghossian's book.
Well, he's his disciple.
Read that book and
Boghossian's book.
do.
And we can
go
A
to-
manual for creating atheists.
Anthony would come here, wouldn't he? Because he lives in San Antonio. Doesn't he?
He might take a little scratch, who knows, but yeah, we could get him up here.
Is it possible to read the book without becoming an atheist? That's important.
Oh, you automatically will.
Is he gonna do some SE videos with us?
It could be an interactive thing, a street epistemology workshop kind of deal. Where you teach us how to do
all our
it.
trade secrets.
Because even Christians can use street epistemology. It's a method.
I'd like to ask him what
I
epistemology
just want to
is.
do a quick recognition here too, because we thank Dan for reaching out to Sasha, but it just seems great to me that here we are, a little group sitting in a little house in Arlington,
On a pale blue dot.
and look at the impact we're having, and look at the connections we're making, and that's credit to you, James, and you, Bill.
Yes.
This is a great significant.
Not to the Chinese in China,
I was at my workplace and having a
Chaos
weekly
theory.
meeting the other day, and they had icebreakers, and they said, well, what books are you reading? So they wanted to know what book we were reading. And I said, well, I'm reading Pale Blue Dot as a part of the Atheist Christian Book Club. And so I had to explain what it was, and we were having Sasha
Sagan.
Why did I say that? But, interviewing her, and they said, wow, how did you get that? How big is your group? I said, well, maybe about 30 people. Wow, that's amazing.
And one thing,
It is amazing.
Yeah.
the thing that
really is.
really said, I originally asked, this is funny, this is a God thing, I'll say it.
Stifle, Bill.
I originally, it was just going to be me doing a podcast with her for my own podcast. I had no idea we were doing Pale Blue Dot when I made that arrangement with her.
Really?
Oh, wow.
I'm not kidding. Yeah, and then I told her about the book club. She's like, "Oh yeah, we're doing it."
Clearly a God thing.
But it was
Yes,
it was
clearly.
pretty. I called James. I said, "Guess who I'm going to be on my podcast?" And he's like, "Guess what book we're reading?" I'm like, "No way, no way! Something is strange at the Circle K."
Change the subject here. Have you heard of Dr. John Sanford? Sanford. He's a population geneticist. He wrote a book called Genetic Entropy.
John Sanford. No,
Genetic Entropy. Yeah, it's Amazon.com. You can
Okay.
actually-
All right.
Yeah,
In one
that's-
sentence, what's
Genetic entropy, the
of
idea is that
genetics?
human genome deteriorates with time. It fits with the second law of thermodynamics.
Right.
So our genetics.
Yeah,
are
so
bound
our
to
human
second law?
genome deteriorates
Yeah, I think I've seen evidence of
1% every generation. Aging is nothing more than mutations of our cells. So we don't mutate into X-Men or anything like
Right,
that.
we mutate into
mutate
old
to
men.
die, basically, yeah.
Oh, that-
and
we had to go
they
there.
actually, they have some population geneticists actually did study 20 years ago showing that, they extrapolate back to the past and then predict the
So we had
future.
AI
So
thousands of years ago.
it's about the human genome will totally deteriorate after about 9,000 years. No. So if you think that we exist about 6,000 years of civilization, then in 3,000 years we would become extinct.
As a human species as we know.
Right. So he was started out as an evolutionist. Now he's a Christian.
I thought we were done in 12 years.
Based on that evidence.
Wow. There's
Yeah, it's called genetic entropy. You can look into
so much
it.
wrong
Yes,
with
on
that.
YouTube. YouTube, John
Well, we
Sanford.
didn't feel bad enough. Thank you.
Now we-
Sorry, man. That's facts, man.
Let's
Evidence.
go ahead and wrap up. But
20 years ago.
one final question before we pull the plug. With a show of hands, does anybody want to meet me here at 1 o'clock tomorrow to go to see that? And I'm okay.
Boy.
Three of us.
I won't do what I can.
I got a show.
Thank you.
I knew you had a show to do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Okay, there's one other option. There's going to be other showings. Is it like can we have more? Can we have more participation?
You want to delay it?
They also have Pink Floyd, The Wall, and Dark Side of the Moon every other Friday.
Every hand will go up. Don't offer them
I'm just
that.
telling you.
Hey, what about
We saw that too.
what about making this a Saturday thing?
Okay, that's another point of discussion. But let's finish up Black Hole first. Would you guys? Oh, and by the way, if you want to go a little bit further, they also do it at the planetarium in Fort Worth, the Natural Museum of Science. They do it there as well. So, and there's more showings it looked like there than there is in.
And they have an
UTA.
IMAX at the Fort Worth.
Well, I don't know they do it there though. I think
Not
they
in
do
the
it-
IMAX. No, they do it in the astronomy.
Right, the
Yeah.
astronomy place. So. But so, how many of you in favor? You might want to do, but if we postpone it till December or January or something.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, let's do that. We're going to postpone then. Okay, you two can go
Yeah,
still
still
if you
go.
want to. and you'll be here.
I'll be here. I might as well.
Which is the better planetarium for the visuals?
UTA.
Really?
It's bigger. I think it's bigger.
UTA is
Bigger than the Fort Worth one?
Fort Worth one is tiny. The little,
Yeah, it
the
is
little
tiny.
astronomy
Oh,
one is
wow.
tiny.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if you're thinking, but the confusing thing is that
IMAX.
the IMAX is a dome.
Yep.
Their IMAX is a dome, and you think that's the astronomy thing, but it's not. The astronomy thing is really tiny.
No.
But the UTA is better because they do it for technical science things. Yeah,
And it's cheap.
it's cheap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask this as well. We were forced into this because of Sasha's schedule, but Saturday has some benefits to it. One of them, those that come from Plano and Allen and along the traffic is
Oklahoma.
much. Yeah, there's once you get up to Allen, it's really faster to drive to Oklahoma City and fly back down. That's the fastest way. But that's the worst. The worst traffic in Dallas is going to be Friday evenings. And Saturday's a lot better. But for a lot of people, that's family day or this won't work. How many would like to maybe shift over to Saturdays?
Or 50-50.
I could go either way. Tell us how many agnostics here.
How many of you would say you would prefer to keep it Friday? That does work better for you. How many would look at, and this has a negative of it's hard to remember which day it is, but maybe doing some Fridays and some Saturdays. How many?
Yeah, okay with that.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe we alternate it up, and we might have people that can only come on Friday and only come on Saturday, but they want to be at least somewhat involved. Okay. So we'll take that into.
Would it be the first Saturday of every month again? Like
I don't know. I've noticed that on the holidays, you want to stay away from the middle of the month or later for Thanksgiving and Christmas especially.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So 4th of July would be the only one that's hurt
I
by.
just for planning purposes. If we know it's
that's
generally the
January.
first Saturday, then you can kind of make your plans.
So on an even-numbered month, we do Fridays. And
If there's going to be much math involved, I'm already against it.
He's trying to put order in the universe.
That's true.
Well, anyway, I want to say thanks again, and I hope you'll be back in December. I really, really look forward to this. This has been a good meeting, a real good one, I think, and appreciate. I felt like we got more help than usual with Daniel helping on the interviews
And I'm
and
on your
editing
staff
stuff
now.
like that. Daniel is on staff. I told you about it. We have an intern from technically from New Orleans Seminary, although he didn't live there. Lives in Dallas, and then Daniel has joined our staff right now. A staff apologist for the ministry, and is going to be helping us out on quite a few projects, including things like this video editing that he did with
And we're going to
Sasha.
try to do some more apologetics, do some podcasting, maybe do some, like I was thinking, a podcast follow-up. How did the Atheist Book Club go this month, and put it out there, maybe a Twitter handle for the Atheist Christian Book Club. Twitter handle, well, I can say that. But podcasting, apologetics, interviews, and catching up to Jim Halls.
That won't be hard.
No, but it's fun. I'm glad to be on board.
Yeah, well, you guys do put out, as far as having lots of content coming out.
Yeah.
I know that's not easy.
Every other day.
I know.
We've hit a
that's-
plateau now. Like, subscribe, share. We've been hanging right at that 8,000 mark for a couple months now, so we need to get a big name on or something to boost it.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Well, a lot of this, and we've already done some, we a lot of my Christian friends don't understand, but, we need to be partnered with Atheist Edge and things like that, because I don't, we want to have atheists to interact with. I mean, it's not that, it's boring if it's just Christians. To me, it's boring if it's just Christians talking about it. You're back in the echo chamber, which is part of what we're trying to get away from. And so, you guys help get the word out. You get people here. You've been
Our most
interviewed on the
viewed
club.
our most viewed videos are the ones we have believers on with us.
Yeah.
If it's just us echo chambering, no, no one watches it.
Yeah. So, and you'll like Atheist Edge if you've not seen it, because he just like in here, it's a respectful conversation. It's not I got you or ridicule. Except maybe if there's one or two guests that you might have, but for the most part, very good.
Can we give their initials?
something or something.
You know who you are. You're not here. You're not here. But if you're watching on YouTube, on Facebook, you know who you are. What kind of audience do we have? We didn't have any questions this time?
Nothing.
Facebook
No
Live? Okay.
questions.
All right.
Were we that interesting? Or what happens?
There
when
was
we don't
6
get
people
questions?
watching the whole time, which is about average, but
Yeah.
every once in a while we'll get a question or two. But usually,
typically
who's
what
your
happens
super
is-
fan? Is she a Messianic Jew? She's not a Christian or an atheist.
She's a former Mormon, now Jewish.
Yes, she usually has a question, but she wasn't on.
And we had John from the Washington D.C. area who was a regular. I haven't seen him with any questions in a while. So, but what happens is once it goes off the live, it posts an hour later or something like that, and typically we will have 1,500 or
Then it blows up.
even sometimes 3,000 views. Now some of them are views for 30 seconds, but when you have 3,000 or 4,000, some of them watch the whole two
If you
hours
want to
plus.
put the whole hour-long thing on Edge, you can do it.
You don't get the metrics on how long people watch the
I'll just go to your
Yeah,
channel.
actually, you
Do I have your
can go
permission
through to
to
show
just
average
re-upload it?
watch
Or-
time and
Two
yeah,
things.
you can go back.
Give
and look at it.
credits. I always give credit.
Yes.
Okay. The videographer, there's video files that have to be credited to Jason Jean.
Is that in your description section?
It didn't put it on there. I'll have to put it on there.
No,
But
in
if
your
you do
YouTube
it,
channel. We'll talk about it later.
yeah.
Okay, well, thanks so much again. We will see you in December, and thanks for being part of the Atheist and Christian Book Club.
Yes, may I have those two of them?
You have it on your channel